Is your family richer than your bank account?
And what does it matter if you gain the whole world, but you lose your soul?
You're going to live a flourishing life now and later.
If you're playing a game, you can't play the game unless you know where the pieces to the game are.
We spend great amounts of energy to be disciplined and intentional in our businesses. And then we go home and we shoot from the hip.
What do you think that did to relationship?
Welcome to the Worth Beyond Wealth podcast,
Where net worth meets personal worth. I'm Shannon.
I'm Ryan. We help families navigate the emotional, relational, and personal realities that money alone can't solve.
If you've built wealth but still wonder what it all means, or how to keep your family grounded while protecting your legacy, you're in the right place.
We sit down with experts and with you to talk identity, purpose, and connection beyond the balance sheet.
Because true wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the impact we make and the relationships we nurture.
So grab a seat,
Take a breath,
and let's redefine what it means
to be truly wealthy together.
This is the Worth Beyond Wealth podcast. Is your family richer than your bank account? Building relational wealth. So that's going to be our topic for today. A little subtext to that. Money without a strong family is a hollow victory. Break down the habits that turn family members into teammates, not business partners at odds with one another.
Right. And I think it's really good to clarify that when we're saying family, we're not saying, a traditional nuclear family, right? It doesn't have to be a married situation. It could be you have a family, a single parent. It could be someone who's never been married but has a family outside of, maybe it's not immediate family. Maybe it's the community. Maybe it's friendships. Family can look really different for everybody, right?
Right.
No less a family.
But there are some commonalities to, how to create a strong family, one that, as we're saying here, one that's richer than just simply a bank account, one that is more than just a number on a statement.
Right.
Right. Which is really the root of some of the problems that we're seeing. And so in some comments leading up to the conversation. So this question kind of cuts to the heart of things. It's a gut check moment, a chance to reflect on whether the relationships that matter most are thriving as much as the financial wealth you're building. And that's really an interesting comment. So let's be honest, all the money in the world won't mean a thing if your relationships fall apart. You say that all the time. You say it a little bit differently. How?
Well, I actually just go back to biblical principles. And what does it matter if you gain the whole world, but you lose your soul?
Yeah. It's the same idea.
It's absolutely.
It's really interesting as we talk about this concept of, are the relationships that matter most thriving as much as the financial wealth you're building? So here in a book called Money, Possessions, and Eternity by Randy Alcorn, he says, consider the testimonies of 5 of the wealthiest men who ever lived. John Rockefeller, I have made many millions, but they have brought me no happiness. Right. I mean, so is that a family that's thriving? Very, very likely not. Vanderbilt says the care of $200 million is enough to kill anyone. There is no pleasure in it.
Notice how he said the care of $200 million.
The responsibility.
The care of the money.
Yeah.
So the money wasn't serving him. He was serving his money.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Andrew Carnegie says millionaires seldom smile. And then Henry Ford, I was happier when doing a mechanic's job. I just think that's a powerful testimony to this idea, because so often money is what's being chased. But is money the thing?
Right. So the question I think becomes, is money the thing, or is money something, right? That we're using in service, in relationship, right? Something that has meaning behind it. So,
and I think money enables the things we're actually after.
It's not that it's unimportant, but it is not what is ultimately important, right?
So what are, in your estimation, what are people, like, I think all of us, what are we after?
I think, and at the end of the day, relationship. We're all after meaningful relationship, connection,
Purpose,
purpose.
joy,
Yeah,
right? So
right.
we want those things.
Meaningful work.
Yeah. We think money is the way to get those other things.
Mm-hmm.
I think for many, it's what a lot of the book kind of touches on, is we can get lost in the
It-
race. Right?
I think that you can start off with really well-meaning intentions. But exactly, if you're not coming back to this North Star mission, vision, purpose, values, what you started out with, you can get lost in the weeds.
So here, how do we begin to build relational wealth? The kind of wealth that lasts far beyond dollars and cents.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think about, at RW, we talk about real wisdom,
Yep.
real wealth, and real worth.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we connect those by saying what we bring is worth
Mm-hmm.
beyond wealth. And that's what we're talking about here.
Absolutely.
The worth and the meaning and the joy and the purpose in your family, in your community, in the charities that you support, in the lives that you touch.
Right.
That is why you want the dollars. The dollars aren't, nobody sits on their deathbed, in my estimation, and says, I'm so glad I have $1 billion in my bank account.
Right. I think you've experienced the opposite. I have angst over the amount of wealth that I now have because it will outlive me. And it's to such a point that I'm actually concerned about what could happen with the money. Right.
Yeah. Or we just talked earlier today about, for instance, even Billy Graham, the famous evangelist, said, my greatest mistake was not spending enough time with my family.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Meaningful
work.
Meaningful work. Yep.
Right. But then what did the family side of that look like? Right.
There was impact. So it's actually really an intentional process.
Well, it makes me think of Die with Zero. We should talk about concepts.
Yeah.
From Die with Zero.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to allow you to just.
Well, I was just before Die with Zero. I just think the idea is how do, again, we're trying to connect some ideas in the book, because what was kind of an aha moment is that the very principles that everybody employs in their in their businesses can be applied to their families.
Right.
So
exactly.
This concept that we think that the things that businesses do to make them run as a well-oiled machine, communication practices, having mission, vision, values,
right.
Key transfer of information, all of those things, you would never think about running a business without them.
Right. So,
and then and here's a direct quote from Patrick Lencioni in his book, 3 Big Questions for a Frantic Family. Almost all the executives I've ever met claim that family is more important to them than work. And most of them seem to really mean it. I think it's funny that he added that. However, every one of those executives, including the one writing this book, would have to admit that they spend inordinately more time thinking about, strategizing about, and meeting about how to run their companies than they do their families.
Sure.
And so what we're trying to do with the LifeRaft, and as we have the ability to communicate with people, with clients, with people we just talked to in the community, is say, look, what are those practices that allow businesses to thrive?
Right.
planning, communication, but I think discipline and intentionality. So in whatever it is, it's we spend great amounts of energy to be disciplined and intentional in our businesses.
Right.
And then we go home and we shoot from the hip. Is that
Yeah,
fair?
it is. And I think what we're trying to do is offer an awareness and then a shift in mindset and some practical ways to implement some change in your home that might be helpful. It's not that it's prescriptive, but it is an offering to say, hey, maybe you would consider this. And I think, I wanted to talk about the way that we have approached that with being more in line with what the financial picture looks like, and how it directly impacts the relationship in the marriage, in the family. So for us, when you first said, "Oh, well, what could this look like moving forward with our mission and our vision, and how could we impact, having this purpose in life and giving?" And I admitted, "Well, yeah, I thought great, but whatever, I can't even get my mind around that right now. I really need to understand what the financial picture is looking like." So let's talk about that. So you actually are my financial advisor, right?
I try.
You try. You try. No, you succeed. There you go. So you're my financial advisor. So interesting situation. So if we were sitting down and I were to say to you, this is what my financial picture looks like. What can I afford to do? Should I, at the end of my life, have this much money, or should I have experiences? Should I be able to give? Should I be able to? What can I do? What would you advise me to do? Would you say, I want you to make sure that you have this much money by the time you're this age and don't touch it, don't do anything, safeguard it with your life? How would you advise somebody who's asking, like, how do I live in relationship? How do I have meaning? How do I have this passion in life, this purpose in life? How do I not serve my money, but my money serves me and the people around me, my community? How would you advise me?
Well, I think most people, most people that I've ever talked to, and I think most people would think that if they missed out on experiences during their life
Mm-hmm.
and left a big pile of money at the end,
Mm-hmm.
that was not the right path.
But what is the traditional
Yep.
methodology?
Right. So there was, well, I'll just say, I think that my industry, the wealth
Yes.
advisory industry, too often
Yes.
tells people save,
Yes.
save,
Stockpile. Don't touch
restrict,
it. Yes.
don't take that trip,
Mm-hmm.
budget. And look, there's a place for all of that. But there is a place. So then we get to the planning process saying restrain spending. We have to have this bulletproof nest egg, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're spending $100,000 now and you're 60, I have to know that in 35 years, because prudence would say that I have to plan for you to live to 95,
Mm-hmm.
even though that's beyond current life expectancy. It's a conservative approach.
Right.
So I have to know that in 35 years, this $100,000, because of inflation, that you can now effectively throughout time keep spending more and more money.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call it $300,000.
Mm-hmm.
And if the software says that doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
then that's a failure. So you have to restrain spending today. Don't spend more than 100, because when you're 95, you need to spend 300. Right. And there, I think, is the mistake. It's not nefarious, and nobody's trying to cause anybody to miss out on experiences. But
No.
what we see practically,
I think it's really short-sighted.
yeah,
It's limited thinking.
we also, though, I think it's limited thinking because we're missing out on the fact that most people,
Mm-hmm.
while they may have lifespan,
Right.
they don't have health span.
Right.
So in the last, maybe it's 15 years,
Right.
everybody's different, but you can't go, or you don't want to go on trips to Europe that cost $50,000 a year. You don't want to get on a cruise ship and travel around the Caribbean.
Or you may want to, but you're not able.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Because it's hard to get on a plane
Right.
and travel all day in cramped seats and on and on and on, right?
Sure.
And so, we have seen many people with millions of dollars in their accounts
Right.
just living on Social Security because that's
interesting.
they're now in a home that Social Security covers. Maybe it's
Right.
another $1,000 or $2,000 a month.
Right.
Post that.
So with that in mind, and with these lived observations, right, bring that back to the topic of relationship, family. Bring that back to, how do I die with zero, but I'm prudent with my money? So tie that together.
Yeah. And I think I don't want to take the concept of die with zero too far.
Yeah.
I do like what he talks about in that book around there is a certain order to maybe how expenses or experiences can be lived throughout life. And
Sure.
and too often we wait for an experience until a point in life when it doesn't make sense anymore because we didn't have the money when it did make sense.
So maybe it was okay to use some money and have the experience when you were able to do that, when your kids were younger, when you had your health span, the ability to travel. So that's what you mean more.
Yeah. I mean, I don't regret any money that we may have ever spent on trips with the kids, because those are now memories we have, right?
Right.
And we can't take our babies to Disneyland again.
Right.
Yeah. So that wasn't an error, right? That wasn't, but that $5,000 now would be worth $35,000 because if it had been invested, then that would be, and that I think can be
really constrictive.
It's constrictive, but it can also be the mindset of some people. I've experienced that with people in this industry. So that is restrictive, and I think missing the real value in life. That is missing worth beyond wealth,
right?
And that's what this concept that we're bringing out is really about. So, how do we, I guess, from a process perspective, or just item after item, I would say one is prioritizing time over money.
Okay. And that time directly relating to relationship.
Yeah. I think it's, we've talked some about this idea of quantity versus quality time, right?
We have.
So some people will say, hey, I didn't spend a lot of time with my kids, but when I did, it was quality. And I actually think I think it's both and.
Yep.
Right.
I would agree.
I think in a book I was recently reading, a researcher had noted that in their study, the number one determinant of kids' success in school and behavioral problems were the frequency in which they ate dinner together as a family.
Yeah, you told me that the other evening that you had just. Well, I was out working. I was doing the yard work, and you were reading. Oh, yeah. Well, you shared your nugget of knowledge with me. That was nice, but I was shocked by that.
That data point.
That data point.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody always says, dinner with your children, this is so important. You hear this a lot from a lot of different experts or, advice givers or, but.
And I think, unfortunately, it's rarer and rarer.
Yeah, but that it's become an actual studied data point that we can point to in the research and say it literally has this outcome. Yeah.
So, I don't think it's a choice between quality time. Hey, when I'm there, we're doing really fun things.
Mm-hmm.
Because just being there matters.
Yeah.
I mean, how much does it matter that you tuck in your daughters,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
you're there providing stability,
Well, and
that
I think,
I'm there, that, it matters.
and to like talking about money and relationships and activities, I had a mom come to me one time and just, what do I do with this 11-year-old girl who I'm working all the time. I'm a single mom and I'm working all the time, but how do I connect with her? And it was so interesting. I'm not saying that I have all the answers, far from it, but be present. Just be present.
Yeah.
And I was trying to encourage her. It's not something that you need to spend a lot of money on if your budget is tight. But when you're not working, or maybe you don't need to pick up that extra shift because you don't need to have this exorbitant, amount of money to go take her to a fancy dinner or even on a trip. But what if you literally got her favorite milkshake from her favorite restaurant? What if you gave her, and I'm not kidding, $20 and you took her to the dollar store and you said, get anything you want. And she lit up like a Christmas tree. Like, are you kidding? I said, yeah. She came back to me and was so excited about the impact that these tiny little dollar store recommendations and grab an inexpensive meal, but just surprise her and show up and just be present. It didn't cost much, but it made all of the difference. She was just with her.
Yeah.
And so
we too often think it has to be
big
and glamorous,
and it doesn't have to be big and glamorous.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's intentionality around all of these things.
Right. So maybe that trip that you take and you spend some money on it, maybe it's jumping in a camper and going to a national park. It doesn't have to be everybody's in first class going to, like you said, Europe. It doesn't have to be that.
I mean,
if that's something
road
you
trips
really
are
want to
some
do,
of our
right?
best experiences.
Yeah.
Time to listen to
You have a captive
radio
audience,
shows,
so you can put that podcast on.
Audible book.
Yeah, your kids don't want to listen to. It's awesome.
I think they did.
They acted as if they were in pain. It was excellent.
But time is, I had a professor in college say, we all have 24 hours. So we all have the same amount of time. But there's another side to that coin. None of us can get any more time.
Right.
Right. So, but we can make more money. Right. There's other things we can do more.
That's very interesting.
Right. But you can't get more time. So are you investing your time in your spouse and family as intentionally as you invest in your business?
So we have some things listed here. Date nights, weekend getaways, something that costs nothing, 30 minutes of uninterrupted conversation.
See, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, again, it's just the intentionality in that we believe, and we've talked about this a lot, families, and we call it living in family enterprise, right? We've created an acronym out of the word life. So families thrive when they're treated with the same care and discipline as businesses. This doesn't mean you have the same board meetings and the same boring, strategy meetings, and you got to make it fun, but we have to stop
show up,
shooting from the hip at home and giving all of our time and attention to the family. So
then taking it, so we've talked about using money, not just stockpiles, hoard it, stockpile it up until you get to 95 years old and, oh, shoot, we should have gone on that trip. Oh, can't believe we didn't go do this. Oh, right. But then we've flipped it and we've said you can also spend money if you don't have that $5,000 to spend. Maybe it's $500. How could I also be intentional and have great moments with that? And then let's talk about too, if we're not talking about spending money, but we're talking about mission statements and shared vision, because maybe there's something that we are saving the money for, investing the money for, because we have a future plan for that money that revolves around mission and vision and purpose outside of ourselves and wants to be intentional about family, generational wealth, community, investing outside of this immediate family.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. And I want to, something you said there brings me back to a quote from one of my strategic coach sessions with Dan Sullivan. I remember it so clearly because he says, I see every expense as an investment.
Yep. Yeah.
Right?
We've tried to adopt that mindset.
So this
Yeah.
trip that might be expensive, this bicycle that might be expensive, or, this dollar store, it's an investment into something for some reason. Right. You can't.
It's not a sunk cost.
No. And in working on the exact wording of this, but I think that when money is used to create experiences that are transformed into lifelong memories, that is real worth.
So I think these moments of mission, vision, purpose, values, investing, is the investment only for when you're 95 years old, or are you investing in the right now? Right?
Well, yeah. And is it only for when you're 95, or even is it for the next generation? And more people are saying, not sure I want them, and I want my kids, or I want my grandkids to be harmed by all of that wealth.
Well, let's talk about that. How can we prevent that? How can we prevent them from being harmed by wealth?
Well, I mean, I think that it begins with this being aligned on a shared vision. So
there you go. Yeah. So education, awareness.
In a book called Preparing Heirs, they talk about successful family transitions. Yeah. And it really comes back to, was there a family wealth mission statement?
There you go.
So is there something that the family...
Are we aligned?
Came around and all had a unified mission and purpose.
Right.
And said, yep, that is what our family's wealth is about.
And we can't do that unless we are in relationship.
Yeah, if we're living in family enterprise, right?
Living in family enterprise.
Takes discipline and intention. Yeah. There was a clear difference in their study. They studied something like 3,500 families. Clear difference between those who had a mission statement and those who did not. And
so I'm teaching my family, I'm working together with my family, versus I'm shooting from the hip and I really hope everything lands well when I toss the dice.
Right. Yeah. So for some families, the book pointed out, the only financial guidance that was ever given was, you're going to go to college and you're going to get a job.
Yes. I hear that.
And you're going to learn and you're going to learn how, the discipline work. Well, and that's true. People need to know how to work. But in these families of significant wealth, there was a problem when the mission wasn't communicated.
Okay.
So maybe mom or dad, maybe just dad, or maybe just mom had one, but it wasn't shared across the whole family.
They weren't living in family enterprise.
That's right.
Okay.
They weren't regularly communicating. Predictable patterns. There weren't, ultimately, there wasn't trust, which is really interesting. The next generation in these families that they claim had unsuccessful wealth transitions from generation to generation.
Define unsuccessful wealth transition.
The loss of money to some... The loss of control of money to some means is how they defined it. So whether that's the economy or a business transition or taxes or
squandering,
like somehow the money was lost from generation to generation. So in the families where there was a unsuccessful transition and there was a lack of trust, largely due to a lack of communication, where the next generation, the people inheriting the wealth, were angry because, oh, look, dad trusted this attorney, this financial advisor, this insurance agent, this business broker with all of this knowledge and didn't tell us a thing.
Wow.
So that lack of trust created generational problems.
Wow.
And, without a lack of trust, there wasn't a
So
commitment around a unified
lack of
goal.
communication and
There
relationship.
wasn't accountability throughout the
Yeah.
family. So in these families where they had a defined mission,
Okay.
people were involved in regular, predictable communication patterns. They
Right.
were being educated, sometimes in formal ways. They had, produced education outcomes and curriculums. There was accountability. So in the successful transitions, these are the characteristics that existed.
Okay.
So, I mean, some of the things we're already saying, hey, align on a shared vision.
Yep.
Just like your business needs a mission statement, your marriage and family needs a shared vision. What are you building together? What values do you have? What alignment is there? Um, it's, and we see this too often, and we don't want to go too deep into it today, but it's in the entrepreneurial families, it's the driving entrepreneur that's kind of leading everything and, leaving the spouse at home to take care of the family. We'll say more about that on another episode, but
Sure.
without alignment, basically that partner being left behind feels like they're living someone else's story. They're not empowered. They probably don't feel safe and secure. Okay. So just like we said a minute ago, these successful families they had mission. They also communicated, right? So communicate like your wealth depends on it.
So then can we talk about if we are in relationship, we are having this family on mission, living with purpose. How can money serve the purpose but not become the purpose, right? How can we use that wealth to reflect our values? And I see here, like, is it investing in experiences? We talked about that. Supporting causes you care about. Is it planning a legacy that goes beyond assets? How can we have this deeper sense of purpose and connection within the family? How could we maybe make some of these goals working with our advisor? How do you maybe do this when you're talking to a couple? And often you're saying, hey, please make sure that you bring your spouse. Because often, well, just one member of this team shows up. And so you're really trying to say, hey, make sure you bring so-and-so. How can you sit down and say, hey, this is how you can use your money. Here's some thoughts. Here's some ways to give. Do you have conversations like this regularly, or is this something you're hoping to start really implementing?
No, I think we regularly have, I'll call them purpose-based conversations.
Purpose-based.
This is not a conversation that is strictly about, hey, can we spend $50,000 a year? These are conversations around, okay, are there special needs in the family? Okay, do we need to plan for a special needs trust or to make sure that there is something left at the end that's meaningful in order for the care of this person? Are there large charitable goals? Are there goals for maybe a second home that all of the family can gather at and create memories? And so how do we weave that into the plan? Can we effectively see how that could work?
So then there's a way that the money hasn't become the purpose, but the wealth is reflecting that family's values.
Yeah.
We want this second home because this is where the generations are gathering. We're planning to have this be the place where everybody comes and gets together, and this is where the memories are being made.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had some of those situations just in the last year or two.
What about legacy?
And those are fun. So I think legacy can kind of mean two things. So that could be something like a family setting up a foundation that can run in for decades or even perpetuity, that family members can operate in, that they can learn to be givers, that they can become a pretty visible part of local or even larger society as they're able to give.
It's great.
That can be an investment in your family and their ability to navigate this world. Um, or it could mean my legacy is leaving wealth to my family, and I feel like they're equipped.
To handle that.
We did, we took them through the courses, we gave them the right education, we
Right.
had the conversations. I've seen how they operate
Yeah.
with their own money.
They've developed
They're mature.
personally.
They are prudent. They'll be stewards. I'm very comfortable,
Yeah.
and
Their
that's my
character is
legacy.
reflective of it. Yeah. Yeah. That's
And I
great.
think there's those are both great.
And then what about examples of supporting causes that maybe a family cares about? Have you worked with different families supporting causes in particular?
I mean, sure. I mean, there are lots of charities near and dear to people's hearts that they give generously and abundantly into.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be the giving of. I mean, this is I don't want to go and say, well, to be a cause, here's somebody who gave a plane to MAF, right, as an example, because it, I just, and I know you do too. The widow's mite, like there's no amount of money.
Yeah.
So it's when people give from their heart into these various things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that happens all the
I
time.
love that.
And really, I think. So on this point of communication, the next line here is money is one of the top sources of conflict in marriages. And we talk about this in the book, but giving, so a mindset of giving, a charitable mindset, this actually is one of the most protective things relative to our relationship with money. And likely, if it's protective for each of us individually as we are relating to money, it probably is somewhat protective toward the relational, that dynamic with money. So I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle is that we are, and this goes back to what does it mean to build a meaningful life? When we talked with someone for an interview for the book, we were asking this question, and he said, well, the existentialists talked about these points, but one of the big one was meaning and purpose beyond yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So if everything we do is just about looking inward, I think that ends in despair. Life isn't about just how do we make ourselves happy today.
Right.
And I think that's when, there's lots of evidence. I'm not just speculating. There's lots of evidence that ends up in a mess. So giving is so critical.
So we're talking about relationship and kind of these really big touch points of how are we living in mission and purpose? How are we creating memories? How are we reflecting values, investing in experiences, supporting causes, generational wealth? We're talking about all these. Let's talk about something really practical. There's two examples I'm thinking of when I'm thinking about just in the daily interactions within the, let's say a marriage.
Okay.
Let's say a marriage. The daily interactions around money. We can behave so poorly or so well when it comes to just basic money conversations. There's one example I'm thinking of. This was a wealthy family. And the story that was relayed was that this gentleman was so critical of the money that his wife would spend on groceries, so critical of the money his wife would spend when the kids needed something like summer flip-flops, right? These are practical, needed items, right? Food, shoes, but so critical. What do you think that did to relationship? Do you think it built trust?
Well, it harmed it.
It was harmful.
And I know you're talking about a different story that somebody told you.
Yeah.
But I read something similar, and it said, here's the problem, though. So on the one hand, there's that emotional issue around, don't spend any money.
Right.
But on the other hand, in the book, it said, but I was berated if we didn't have first class tickets. So it was damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
I can't spend any money, but then we have to have the best.
I'm hogtied.
Right? So then
Can't.
I think that is kind of to the root of this next, invest in emotional connection. So
yes,
right, that is the lack of. So that is using money as a weapon. You know, it's weaponized control of money versus, you know, how can wealth be used relationally? How can we grow together? How can we invest in each other, in our family?
So that's really sweet, because I'm thinking of the next example, and I remember a gentleman, again, this time saying, hey, calling out, actually he was calling out other gentlemen, saying, hey, be aware that when you're planning, when you're thinking about money, when you're whatever it happens to be aware to be kind to your wife. Does she need to have some funds to be able to get her hair cut? Does she need to have some funds to be able to do something that's, you know, enjoyable to her, or helps her to, you know, invest in herself a little bit? You know, so what do you think that did for relationship?
Oh, I mean, it undoubtedly improved.
Yeah. So just some common, just, you know, maybe just some.
Some of these things are not that complex.
They're not, but I think they're pain points.
Yeah. I love the quote, the saying, it's simple, but it's not easy. Right? So some of these things are just simple.
But we can take that for granted, right? That it can be a real struggle for somebody. And maybe
especially when you're off running the business, you're up at 4:30 a.m. to get to the office by 5:30 a.m. to only get home at 7. You're tired. You expect everything at home to be running like clockwork because your role was over here taking care of the business and making the money. And so we need everything. So sometimes then those simple things get missed because you're just in the grind.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And so I think in both counts, then we say, how do we allow for some grace in there? And so how do we connect emotionally and you know, in those moments say, hey, you know, I'm sure we should have a counselor on. There's some great diffusing terms and ways of saying it. But those are the points that become heated arguments, that become frustration, that become identity forming comments made in passing and anger that could have long-term impact,
right?
Even through generations. So I think that's all really important. So then we have here, build a LifeRaft together. So, you know, so again, we're talking about how do we, the reason we're doing this project is because money touches every area of life.
Right.
I mean, this is why in the Bible, money is mentioned, money and material possessions are mentioned 2,300 times, right? More than any other topic. So there's something there. Why is that? It's because it touches every aspect of our life.
Sure.
And so when we sit here and say, hey, how do we, here's the question, is your family richer than your bank account? Okay, well, it kind of starts with understanding, shared knowledge, shared purpose, okay? But why are we starting with the wealth side in this LifeRaft project?
Without the safety and security and the understanding of the money in your home, how do you get beyond that into mission, vision, purpose, values, creating this generational wealth health as you're moving forward? You can't do that. So it's foundational.
Right. In other words, if I don't understand what we have,
Right.
and you say, hey, we're going to go give, let's think about this together. And I'm thinking $500 and you're thinking $1 million. Well, we're not even on the same planet.
So we talked
So-
about that the other day. We referred to it as a game. If you're playing a game
Yep.
with somebody, you can't play the game unless you know first, how do you play the game? What are the rules? But how do you even do that if you don't even know where the pieces to the game are, right? So we have to know, where are the pieces? What do they do? How do we play the game? How does everybody understand this game, right?
And that's the root of what we think is different about some of the LifeRaft tools is we're trying to create a narrative around story narrative. We learn through story. Okay, so when we're trying to transfer knowledge to the parties in our family that don't have that same level of education and knowledge, we want to bring it up. We want to be on the same playing field because we want to be able to have purpose-based conversations.
Yeah.
So again, the end goal isn't, oh, great, you understand what our balance sheet is. Now let's move on.
Yeah, no. Like that was just the beginning.
That's just the thing
Yeah.
that enables all of the fun stuff.
Right.
Right. Now we can dream together because, we've talked to people who have made different comments and, one spouse just like, let's give this amount. And they're like, how can we possibly do that? It doesn't even make sense.
Right.
We can, so.
And the other
then-
one's going,
then
well,
we
how do
can't-
you not know we can do that? Well,
Right.
did you ever share the information?
Yep. Lack
No.
of, so back to the preparing heirs data, lack of communication, not through generations, just even beginning with among spouses.
There you go. Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
So this question, go back to the question again, if you would.
So the question we're really diving into throughout the day is your family richer than your bank account?
So we start with the bank account with the LifeRaft.
Yep. Not just the bank account, but we'll call it wealth. Yep.
Right. Just saying.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the question. So we'll say the bank account is my LifeRaft. I know it's worth this much now, but we want your family to be richer. So then the encouragement there would be, okay, that's step one. Now move into these other phases.
Yeah.
This mission and purpose, this celebration and moments. Move into all of that so that the answer to that is a resounding yes. Yes, it is. And that bank account serves the other components of my family.
Yeah. We think a bank account can become the launch pad, bank account being the LifeRaft wealth, everything in your family's orbit of assets and money can become the launch pad for a flourishing life living in family enterprise. Again, back to this idea, family, we believe family can flourish. I don't want to say should. I want to say should, but I'm not going to should on people. So family can flourish when given the same intentionality and discipline as we all give our businesses. And again, I just, and you're seeing this too, but we're seeing so many successful business owners, successful executives, successful pastors. They get to a certain point and they're saying, I've succeeded, but my gosh, at what cost?
Right.
I've climbed the ladder of success and I'm standing on the wrong building.
Right.
I've
Over and
lost
over.
this or this. My health
I've almost
is,
lost my marriage.
I'm not having fun anymore.
Right. My
Like,
kids don't want to talk to me.
So, that old adage, the journey is more important than the destination is so true.
Yeah.
When you're, I remember the person who told me that, I was probably 25 and I'm like, yeah, that's easy for you to say. You're at you're at kind of the peak and you've arrived. So I get it. You're just, but it is true.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. So I think the resounding answer is it should be. It's your family richer than your bank account.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And how can we help create awareness around that? And how can we help implement some tools and help to shift a mindset so that you can answer yes to that question.
Thank you for listening to the Worth Beyond Wealth podcast. If you liked this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. The highest compliment you could give would be sharing this with a friend. Thank you. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or any specific security. RW Investment Management, LLC, DBA RW Investment Management is a registered investment advisor. Testimonials given by current clients are not in exchange for compensation. This document is solely for informational purposes. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RWIM and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. Past performance is no guarantee of future returns. Investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. No advice may be rendered by RWIM unless a client service agreement is in place. RWIM is not a legal or tax advisor.